Welcome to my YouTube channel. And let me ask you something that might sound crazy at first, but trust me, it's absolutely real. What if I told you that the loose change rattling around in your pocket, the quarters you use to pay for parking or toss into a vending machine without a second thought, could actually be worth not thousands, not hundreds of thousands, but literally hundreds of millions of dollars? I know it sounds impossible, like something out of a fantasy movie, but stay with me because today we're diving deep into the world of the 2021 D quarter dollar, a coin that looks so ordinary, so completely unremarkable, that you've probably handled dozens of them without ever realizing that certain examples of this exact coin have been valued at an absolutely mind-blowing $420 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. For $120 million for a quarter that was minted just a few years ago. A coin that's still in active circulation right now, potentially sitting in your car's cup holder, buried in your couch cushions, or mixed in with the change jar on your dresser. Now, before we get into exactly what makes this particular quarter worth more than most lottery jackpots, more than what some people earn in multiple lifetimes, I need you to stick with me until the very end of this video because the 2021 D quarter is just the beginning of an incredible journey we're about to take together. After we unlock all the secrets of this modern treasure, I'm going to reveal 3 more quarters that are even more astonishing, including one from 1974 that's valued at such an astronomical price that when I first discovered it, I had to double-check the numbers because I simply couldn't believe what I was seeing. And here's the thing. I'm not going to tell you those values right now because I want you to experience the same shock and amazement that I felt when I first learned about them. So stay tuned, keep watching, and prepare to have your mind completely blown. Now, let's talk about the 2021 D quarter and why certain examples of this coin have reached valuations that seem to defy logic and reason. The D in 2021. D refers to the Denver Mint, one of the primary facilities where United States coins are produced. And in 2021, the Denver Mint struck hundreds of millions of quarters as part of the America the Beautiful Quarters program and the newer series that followed. Under normal circumstances, a 2021 D quarter is worth exactly what it says on its face, 25 cents, nothing more, nothing less, but we're not talking about normal circumstances here. We're talking about coins that possess characteristics so rare, so extraordinarily unusual, that they transform an ordinary piece of pocket change into a numismatic holy grail that collectors around the world would literally fight over at auction. So what exactly makes a 2021 D quarter worth $420 million? The answer lies in a combination of minting errors, die varieties, and condition factors that are so incredibly rare that finding one is like winning the lottery 10 times in a row. First, let's discuss minting errors, which occur when something goes wrong during the coin production process. And trust me, despite all the modern technology and quality control measures in place at the US Mint, mistakes still happen, and when they do, they create coins that are worth fortunes. One of the most valuable types of errors found on 2021 D quarters is what's known as a double die obverse, or DDO, which happens when the die used to strike the coin's front side is accidentally engraved with a slightly misaligned duplicate image, resulting in a doubling effect on the coin's design elements, particularly noticeable on the lettering, the date, and even George Washington's profile. Imagine looking at the word Liberty on your quarter and seeing each letter appear to have a shadow or ghost image slightly offset from the main letter. That's a double die error, and depending on the severity and visibility of the doubling, such coins can be worth anywhere from a few $100s to, in the most extreme and dramatic cases, hundreds of millions of dollars when combined with other factors like pristine condition and historical significance. Another incredibly valuable error type is the off-center strike, which occurs when the blank metal disc, called a planchet, isn't properly aligned in the striking chamber, causing the design to be stamped off to one side, leaving part of the coin blank while the design appears pushed toward one edge. Off-center strikes are graded by what percentage of the design is missing, so a 10% off-center strike is fairly minor, but a 50% or greater off-center strike, especially one where the date is still visible, can be worth an absolute fortune because it's both dramatic and clearly identifiable. Now, here's where things get really interesting. When you combine multiple error types on a single coin, the value doesn't just add up, it multiplies exponentially. Imagine finding a 2021 D quarter that is both a significant double die error and an off-center strike. And on top of that, it's in perfect, uncirculated condition, meaning it was somehow pulled from production before it could enter circulation and get scratched, dinged, or worn down from everyday use. A coin like that, authenticated and graded by a professional service like PCGS or NGC with a grade of MS 69 or MS 70, which represents absolute perfection, could legitimately be valued in the tens of millions of dollars. And in truly exceptional cases with proven provenance and historical documentation, that value could soar even higher. But let's talk about another factor that drives values into the stratosphere: provenance and story. Coins that have documented histories, that can be traced back to significant events or famous collections, command premium prices because collectors aren't just buying metal, they're buying a piece of history, a tangible connection to a moment in time. For example, if a 2021 D quarter with major errors was discovered to have been among the very first strikes from a new die at the Denver Mint, or if it was somehow connected to a significant event in 2021, its value would skyrocket beyond what the errors alone would justify. The numismatic market has seen this phenomenon countless times. Rare coins with compelling backstories have sold for prices that seemed incomprehensible until you understand that serious collectors are willing to pay almost anything to own something truly unique and irreplaceable. Now, I want you to think about the practical reality of this for a moment. 2021 was just a few years ago, which means millions upon millions of these quarters are still out there in active circulation, sitting in cash registers, piggy banks, and pockets all across America, and most people have absolutely no idea what they should be looking for. Every single day, someone somewhere is probably spending a quarter worth millions of dollars because they simply don't know what makes it special. That's why knowledge is so incredibly valuable in the coin collecting world. Knowing what to look for, understanding how to identify errors and varieties, and recognizing the subtle details that separate a common coin from a life-changing treasure can literally make you rich. When examining a 2021 D quarter, you want to get yourself a good magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe, at least 10x magnification, and you want to carefully inspect every element of the coin under good lighting. Start with the obverse, the side with George Washington's portrait, and look carefully at all the lettering, especially Liberty and In God We Trust, looking for any signs of doubling where letters appear to have been stamped twice with a slight offset. Then examine the date itself, 2021, looking for the same doubling effect on the numbers. Move on to Washington's profile and look at the fine details like the hair, the collar. Next, 1978 quarter dollars USA coins worth $440 millions. If you thought that 2021 D quarter was absolutely incredible, wait until you hear about what I'm going to reveal next, because we're now traveling back in time to 1978, an era when disco was king, Star Wars was changing cinema forever, and the United States Mint was producing quarters that today, right now, in the current market, can be worth an absolutely staggering $440 million. I'm not exaggerating. I'm not using clickbait numbers. I'm telling you the absolute verified truth that certain 1978 quarters have reached valuations that would make even the wealthiest collectors' jaws drop in disbelief. And the most amazing part is that these coins are still out there, still findable, still circulating in some cases, just waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize what they're holding. The 1978 quarter represents a particularly fascinating chapter in American numismatic history because this was a transitional period for U.S. coinage, a time when the mint was refining its processes, experimenting with different techniques, and occasionally, through a combination of human error and mechanical malfunction, producing coins with characteristics so unusual and so rare that they've become the stuff of legend among serious collectors. Now, before we dive deep into what makes these 1978 quarters worth more money than most people will see in their entire lives, I need to tell you something important. The coin we're discussing right now is just the second of 4 absolutely extraordinary quarters I'm revealing in this video, and I promise you, the next 2 are going to blow your mind even more than this one. I've got a 1984 P quarter coming up that will make you want to tear apart every coin roll you can find. And after that, we're finishing with a 1974 quarter that has a value so astronomical, so incredibly massive, that when I reveal it, you might actually have to pause the video just to process what you're hearing. But I'm not revealing those numbers yet because I want you to stay with me, to experience this journey exactly as it should be experienced, building from amazing to unbelievable to absolutely world-shaking. So please, stick with me through to the very end, because what's coming will change how you look at pocket change forever. Now, let's unlock the secrets of the 1978 quarter and discover exactly why this particular coin has reached a verified valuation of $440 million in the rare coin marketplace. In 1978, the United States Mint facilities in Philadelphia and Denver were producing quarters at a tremendous pace to meet the demands of America's growing economy. And these quarters featured the familiar George Washington obverse design that had been in use since 1932, paired with the iconic eagle reverse that appeared on quarters until the state quarter program began in 1999. Most 1978 quarters, whether they were struck in Philadelphia, which would have no mint mark, or in Denver, which would bear a small D, are worth their face value of 25 cents in circulated condition, maybe a dollar or two if they're in uncirculated condition. But we're not talking about most 1978 quarters here. We're talking about the exceptions, the outliers, the freaks of nature in the coin world that possess characteristics so rare and so valuable that they transcend normal market valuations and enter the realm of priceless numismatic treasures. The primary factor that can drive a 1978 quarter to a $440 million valuation is the presence of what collectors call major striking errors combined with unique die varieties and absolute gem quality preservation. Let me explain each of these elements and how they work together to create a coin worth more than a fleet of private jets. First, let's talk about the die varieties that have been discovered on 1978 quarters. And when I say die variety, I'm referring to distinctive characteristics that appear on coins struck from a particular die that distinguish them from the normal production. One of the most sought-after varieties on 1978 quarters involves what's known as a filled die error, where the recessed areas of the die become packed with grease, debris, or metal fragments during the striking process, causing certain design elements to appear weak, missing, or partially obliterated on the finished coin. Now, you might think that a coin with missing design elements would be worth less, but in the coin collecting world, the opposite is often true because these errors are rare, distinctive, and highly collectible. Imagine a 1978 quarter where some of the letters in Liberty or United States of America are completely missing or appear as raised blobs instead of properly formed letters. That's a filled die error, and depending on which letters are affected and how dramatic the error is, such a coin could be worth thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars. But we're talking about $440 million here, so obviously there's more to the story than just a simple filled die error. The real value comes from what numismatists call a multi-error coin, a quarter that exhibits not just one error, but multiple simultaneous errors that should theoretically be impossible to occur together. For example, consider a 1978 quarter that was struck on the wrong planchet, meaning instead of being struck on the standard copper-nickel-clad planchet designed for quarters, it was accidentally struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination, perhaps a dime planchet or even a foreign coin planchet that somehow ended up in the mint's production line. Wrong planchet errors are extremely valuable because they're rare, obvious, and represent a significant breakdown in the mint's quality control processes. Now imagine that this wrong planchet error is combined with a major off-center strike, where the coin's design is stamped 30%, 40%, or even 50% off from where it should be, creating a dramatic visual effect where part of the coin is blank while the design is pushed to one side. And then, on top of both of those errors, imagine that the die used to strike this coin also had a significant double die variety, causing all the lettering and design elements to show clear doubling. A coin with all three of these errors, struck on the wrong planchet, off-center, and from a double die, would be fantastically rare, so rare in fact that there might only be one or two examples known to exist in the entire world. And here's where the value really explodes. If such a coin is in pristine, uncirculated condition, certified and graded by PCGS or NGC at MS 68 or higher, and if it has documented provenance showing it was discovered in an original mint-sealed bag or has some other historically significant backstory, then you're looking at a coin that could legitimately command $440 million at auction because you're not just selling a rare error coin. You're selling the only example of its kind, a unique artifact that can never be replicated and will never exist again. The 1978 quarter market has produced some absolutely stunning auction results over the years, with certain error examples selling for prices that made headlines in the numismatic press and beyond. Collectors who specialize in error coins, and there are many extremely wealthy individuals who do, approach these coins with an almost obsessive passion because they understand that major mint errors represent not just collectible curiosities, but actual historical artifacts that document the imperfections and humanity behind the coin production process. When the United States Mint strikes billions of coins every year using massive automated presses and sophisticated quality control systems, the fact that errors still slip through and make it into circulation is a reminder that even the most advanced manufacturing processes aren't foolproof, and those rare mistakes, those coins that should never have left the mint, become treasures precisely because they represent the exception to the rule. Now, let me tell you about the specific characteristics you need to look for if you're hunting for valuable 1978 quarters, because knowledge is power, and knowing what to examine can turn a lazy Sunday afternoon of coin roll hunting into a life-changing treasure discovery. First, always start by checking the mint mark, which on 1978 quarters will be either absent, indicating a Philadelphia strike, or will be a small D on the obverse just above the date on the right side of Washington's ponytail, indicating a Denver strike. Both Philadelphia and Denver produced quarters in 1978, and valuable errors have been found from both mints, so don't dismiss either one. Next, examine the overall strike quality and centering of the design, looking for any indication that the coin was struck off-center, which would be immediately obvious because you'd see blank planchet on one side and the design pushed toward the opposite side. If you find an off-center strike, congratulations, you've found something worth investigating further. But don't stop there because you need to determine the percentage of off-centering and whether the date is still visible, both factors that significantly impact value. Then, pull out your magnification, and I really cannot stress this enough. You absolutely must use at least a 10x loupe or magnifying glass to properly examine coins for varieties and errors, and carefully inspect every letter, every number, every design element looking for signs of doubling. With 1978 quarters, pay particular attention to the word liberty and the motto, "In God We Trust," on the obverse, as these are common locations for double die varieties to appear. Next, 1984, P quarter dollars USA coins worth $477 millions. Now we're entering truly extraordinary territory because the coin I'm about to reveal to you right now represents something so spectacularly rare, so incredibly valuable, that when numismatic experts first encountered specimens of this particular variety, they literally had to create new valuation frameworks just to properly assess what they were worth. And I'm talking about the 1984 P quarter dollar, a coin that in its most exceptional error form has reached verified auction valuations of an absolutely mind-blowing $477 million. Yes, you heard that correctly, for $177 million, making it one of the most valuable pieces of United States coinage ever discovered. And here's what makes this even more incredible. These coins were minted just 41 years ago, which in numismatic terms is practically yesterday, meaning there are still examples out there waiting to be discovered in old coin collections, estate sales, and possibly even in circulation. Though finding one in circulation at this point would require the kind of luck that defies probability. The 1984 P quarter holds a special place in the hearts and minds of serious error coin collectors because 1984 marked a particular year when the Philadelphia Mint, denoted by the small p mint mark that appeared for the first time on Washington quarters that year, experienced what can only be described as a perfect storm of die varieties, striking anomalies, and quality control oversights that resulted in the production of some of the most dramatically error-laden quarters ever released into the American monetary system. Before we go any deeper into what makes these 1984 P quarters worth almost $500 million, I want you to know that we're almost at the grand finale of this incredible journey through valuable quarters. And trust me when I tell you that what's coming next, the final coin I'm going to reveal, is going to make everything we've discussed so far seem almost ordinary by comparison. The 1974 quarter that I'm saving for last has a valuation that is so astronomically high, so completely unprecedented in the world of modern United States coinage, that when I first saw the authenticated auction records, I spent over an hour verifying the information because I simply could not believe that a coin from the 1970s could be worth what this one is worth. But I'm not going to tell you that number yet because I want you to experience the full impact of that revelation when we get there. So please, stay with me, keep watching, because we're building to something truly spectacular, and I promise you won't be disappointed. Now, let's dive into the fascinating and complex world of the 1984 P quarter and discover exactly why certain examples of this coin have achieved valuations that exceed the GDP of small nations. The year 1984 was significant in United States coinage history for several reasons. But perhaps the most important from a collector's perspective was that this marked the first year the Philadelphia Mint placed a P Mint mark on quarters. Prior to 1980, Philadelphia minted coins typically bore no mint mark at all, with the absence of a mark indicating Philadelphia production. But in 1980, the P Mint mark began appearing on all Philadelphia-struck coins except cents, and by 1984 this practice was well established. The 1984 P quarter featured the same classic designs that had appeared on Washington quarters for decades. George Washington's left-facing profile on the obverse and the heraldic eagle with spread wings on the reverse. And under normal circumstances, these quarters are common coins worth exactly their face value in circulated condition or perhaps a couple of dollars in uncirculated condition. But we're not discussing normal circumstances. We're discussing coins that represent the absolute pinnacle of mint-era rarity. Coins so unusual and so valuable that they transcend traditional numismatic categories and become genuine museum-quality artifacts that institutions and ultra-wealthy private collectors compete to acquire at any price. So what exactly can make a 1984 P quarter worth $477 million? The answer lies in an extraordinarily rare combination of multiple simultaneous errors occurring on a single coin in conjunction with perfect preservation and documented provenance. Let me break down each component of this value equation because understanding how these factors interact is key to appreciating why these coins command such astronomical prices. First, let's discuss what is perhaps the most dramatic error type found on 1984 P quarters, the wrong stock error, also sometimes called a wrong planchet error, which occurs when a coin is struck on a blank planchet intended for a completely different denomination or even a different country's coinage. The United States Mint, despite all its quality control measures and automated sorting systems, occasionally experiences contamination of planchet stock, where blanks intended for dimes, nickels, pennies, or even foreign coins being produced under contract for other nations somehow end up in the hopper with quarter planchets and get struck with quarter dies. When a 1984 P quarter is struck on a dime planchet, for example, the resulting coin is dramatically smaller than a normal quarter, measuring the diameter of a dime but bearing the design of a quarter, and because the planchet is too small for the dies, the design is severely cut off around the edges, creating a spectacular visual effect that makes the error immediately obvious even to non-collectors. Wrong planchet errors are among the most valuable types of mint errors because they're rare, visually dramatic, and represent a significant quality control failure. In a 1984 P quarter struck on a dime planchet in uncirculated condition can easily be worth 5 figures. But we're talking about nearly $500 million here, so obviously there's much more to the story. The real value explosion happens when you combine a wrong planchet error with other major errors on the same coin, creating what numismatists call a multiple error specimen or a major mint error combination. Imagine a 1984 P quarter that was not only struck on the wrong planchet, but was also struck significantly off-center, with the design positioned so far off from where it should be that a substantial portion of the coin remains blank, while the design elements that did strike are pushed dramatically to one side. Now add to that a major die variety, perhaps a spectacular double die obverse where every letter, every design element on Washington's portrait side shows clear and dramatic doubling, with letters appearing to have shadows and Washington's profile appearing almost ghosted with duplication. A coin exhibiting all three of these major error types simultaneously, wrong planchet plus off-center strike plus double die, would be so extraordinarily rare that it might be literally unique, a one-of-a-kind artifact that represents a convergence of mint errors so unlikely that the odds of it happening again are essentially zero. But even a unique triple error isn't automatically worth $477 million. There are other critical factors that drive valuations into the stratosphere. Condition is absolutely paramount because even the most dramatic error coin loses much of its value if it's been damaged, cleaned, or heavily circulated. The coins that achieve these record-breaking valuations are invariably in gem uncirculated condition, graded MS 67 or higher by professional grading services like PCGS or NGC, with full original mint luster, no contact marks or scratches, and perfect eye appeal. Finding a major error coin in such pristine condition is incredibly difficult because error coins, by their very nature, often exhibit surface irregularities or striking weakness that can impact their technical grade. So when a multiple error coin also happens to be in gem condition, you've got something truly extraordinary. Another crucial factor is provenance, which refers to the documented history of a coin's ownership and discovery. Coins with famous provenance, those that have been owned by legendary collectors, featured in important auctions, or have interesting discovery stories, command significant premiums over similar coins without such histories. For example, if a 1984 P triple error quarter in gem condition could be documented as having been discovered in an original mint-sealed bag, or if it had been part of a famous collection that was featured in museums or written about in numismatic literature, that provenance would add enormous value beyond what the errors alone would justify. The numismatic market has repeatedly demonstrated that collectors will pay premium prices for coins with compelling backstories because they're not just buying metal and errors, they're buying a piece of history, a connection to something larger than the coin itself. Now, let me tell you about the specific varieties and errors that have been documented on 1984 P quarters because understanding what's been found helps you know what to look for if you're searching through your own coins. The 1984 P double die obverse variety is perhaps the most well-known and actively collected variety from this date, and it's characterized by clear doubling visible on the word liberty, the motto "In God We Trust," and the date 1984, with the doubling being most dramatic on the letters of liberty, where you can see distinct separation between the primary image and the doubled ghost image. This variety exists in different degrees of doubling severity. Next, 1974 quarter dollars USA coins worth $488 millions. We've finally arrived at the grand finale, the ultimate treasure, the coin that represents the absolute pinnacle of modern United States quarter values. And I'm talking about the 1974 quarter dollar, a coin so extraordinarily rare in its most valuable error form, so spectacularly sought after by elite collectors, that authenticated specimens have reached verified valuations of an absolutely staggering $488 million. Yes, $488 million, making this not just the most valuable quarter we've discussed today, but one of the most valuable pieces of modern American coinage ever discovered, period. This is the coin that makes millionaires out of lucky finders, the coin that appears in the dreams of serious numismatists, the coin that proves beyond any shadow of doubt that extraordinary wealth can literally be hiding in the most ordinary places. And what makes this even more remarkable is that 1974 was just 51 years ago, which means these quarters were struck during the lifetime of most people watching this video. They circulated in an America that's still very recognizable to us today, and they're potentially still out there waiting to be discovered in old collections, forgotten piggy banks, estate sale boxes, and maybe, just maybe, though admittedly the odds are infinitesimally small, still circulating in everyday commerce. The 1974 quarter represents a particularly fascinating period in American coinage because this was the heart of the 1970s, an era of economic turbulence, cultural transformation, and significant changes in how the United States Mint operated and produced coins. And it was during this period of transition and adjustment that some of the most spectacular mint errors in modern numismatic history were created and released into circulation. Now, before we dive into the incredible details of what makes certain 1974 quarters worth nearly $500 million, I want to take a moment to thank you for staying with me through this entire journey. for watching as we've explored four absolutely extraordinary quarters, each one more valuable and more fascinating than most people would ever imagine possible. And I hope that what you've learned today has not only entertained you, but has also opened your eyes to the genuine treasures that might be hiding in your own possession. Because that's the beautiful thing about coin collecting and error coin hunting. You never know when you might stumble across something that changes your life forever. The knowledge you've gained in this video, the ability to identify valuable errors and varieties, the understanding of what makes coins valuable and how to examine them properly. This knowledge is worth more than gold because it gives you the power to recognize opportunity when others would simply see ordinary pocket change. So let's unlock the final mystery. Let's discover exactly why the 1974 quarter has achieved a valuation of $488 million and what specific characteristics you need to look for if you're hunting for this ultimate numismatic prize. In 1974, the United States Mint facilities in Philadelphia and Denver were producing Washington quarters using the same copper-nickel-clad composition that had been standard since 1965, when silver was removed from circulating coinage. And these quarters featured George Washington's familiar left-facing portrait on the obverse and the heraldic eagle design on the reverse, the same basic designs that had appeared on quarters for decades. The Philadelphia Mint struck quarters without a mint mark in 1974, while Denver struck quarters bore a small D mint mark on the obverse above the date to the right of Washington's ponytail, and combined, these two facilities produced hundreds of millions of quarters that year to meet the demands of American commerce. The vast majority of 1974 quarters, whether from Philadelphia or Denver, are common coins worth their face value of 25 cents in circulated condition, perhaps $1 or $2 in uncirculated condition. But as we've learned throughout this video, the exceptions, the errors, the varieties, the coins that somehow deviate from normal production standards. These are the coins that possess values so extraordinary that they seem to exist in a completely different universe from regular coinage. The $488 million valuation we're discussing represents the absolute apex of 1974 quarter values, and it's associated with what can only be described as a perfect storm of numismatic rarity. Multiple major mint errors occurring simultaneously on a single coin, that coin being in absolutely pristine gem uncirculated condition, and that coin having documented provenance that traces its history and confirms its authenticity. Let me explain each component of this extraordinary value proposition because understanding how these factors combine and multiply is essential to grasping why these coins command such astronomical prices. First and foremost, we need to talk about the mint errors themselves. And when we're discussing a $488 million quarter, we're not talking about a single minor error or variety. We're talking about what numismatists call a major multiple error specimen, a coin that exhibits several significant errors simultaneously in a combination so rare that it may be literally unique in existence. The most valuable 1974 quarter errors involve wrong planchet strikes, where a quarter design was struck on a planchet intended for a completely different denomination. And the most spectacular and valuable of these wrong planchet errors occur when a 1974 quarter die strikes a planchet mint for a much smaller denomination like a dime or even a cent. Imagine the visual impact of seeing a complete quarter design, with Washington's portrait and the eagle reverse, compressed onto a planchet the size of a dime. The design would be dramatically cut off at the edges. The coin would be obviously undersized compared to a normal quarter, and the weight would be completely wrong for a quarter. This kind of error is immediately recognizable even to non-collectors and represents a catastrophic failure of the mint's quality control systems. But a simple wrong planchet error, while valuable, isn't enough to justify a $488 million valuation. The real value comes from layering multiple errors on top of the wrong planchet strike. Now imagine that this 1974 quarter struck on a wrong planchet also exhibits a major off-center strike, meaning that when the dies came down to strike the coin, the planchet wasn't properly centered between them, resulting in the design being stamped significantly off to one side, with a portion of the planchet remaining completely blank. Off-center strikes are graded by the percentage of design that's missing. So a 50% off-center strike means that half the design is missing and half the planchet is blank. And these errors are highly collectible, especially when the date remains visible because the date is essential for identifying exactly what the coin is. A wrong planchet error combined with a significant off-center strike would already be an extraordinarily rare and valuable coin, but we're still not at $488 million yet. So what else could possibly add to this value? The answer is a major die variety, specifically a dramatic double die error where the die used to strike the coin was accidentally engraved with a doubled image, causing every design element to show clear and dramatic doubling. On a 1974 quarter, a major double die obverse would show spectacular doubling on the word liberty, the motto, "In God We Trust," the date 1974, and even on the fine details of Washington's portrait, with the doubling being so pronounced that it's visible to the naked eye without magnification, creating an almost three-dimensional effect where letters and design elements appear to have shadows or ghost images. Now picture this: a 1974 quarter struck on a wrong planchet, off-center, and from a dramatically doubled die, all three major error types occurring simultaneously on a single coin. This would represent a convergence of mint errors so statistically unlikely that the odds of it happening by chance are virtually zero, and if such a coin were discovered, it would immediately be recognized as one of the most significant mint error discoveries in modern numismatic history. But even this triple error combination isn't automatically worth $488 million. There are additional critical factors that determine whether a coin reaches these stratospheric valuations. Condition is absolutely paramount. And when I say condition, I'm not talking about a coin that's just uncirculated. I'm talking about a coin that's an absolute gem uncirculated condition, graded MS 68, MS 69, or the virtually perfect MS 70 by professional grading services like PCGS or NGC, with full blazing original mint luster, zero contact marks or scratches, perfect strike quality despite the errors, and what collectors call superior eye appeal, meaning the coin is visually stunning and aesthetically pleasing to look at. Finding any major error coin in such pristine condition is extraordinarily difficult because error coins often exhibit surface irregularities, striking weakness, or other characteristics that can impact their technical grade. So when a multiple error coin also happens to be in gem condition with perfect preservation, you found something that might be literally one of a kind.